Every lore video on the G-Virus portrays it as evolution. That framing misses its true purpose. Laswell's scorched Birkin notes reveal genetic sequences resembling Uroboros' structure, not a precursor, a prototype. His final equations suggest symbiosis, not mutation, a failed attempt to fuse host and pathogen. Was Birkin's madness a crude mimicry of Wesker's later *perfection*? What if Birkin's evolution was a dead end? His obsessive work on the G-Virus masked a darker truth. Umbrella's fractal-spawned nightmare wasn't a step forward. It was a desperate mimicry of Wesker's celestial design. The G-Virus gnawed at the edges of symbiosis, but Wesker's Uroboros swallowed the concept whole. Birkin's failed prototype bled from a hunger to cheat nature's purge, a culling, not a cure. How far would a corporation go to play God? The answer slithers in the gap between Birkin's rot and Wesker's apotheoses. Arclay's rusted vents exhaled failure. Birkin's 1980s journals, buried beneath Laswell's concrete, detail a virus as a clenched fist genetic code forcing life into a noose. Marcus' 1968 sketches hinted at infection as a key. Birkin turned it into a battering ram. His lab, a cathedral of Petri dishes and screaming cultures, sought to fuse DNA with RNA not to heal, but to impose order. The G-Virus serpentine helix, coiled in amber vials, was no gift. It was a prototype symbiosis meant to bind host and pathogen, but the virus gnawed its own design, subjects dissolved. Flesh became lattice, then ash. Umbrella's global labs mirrored this hubris. By 1998, Birkin's notes curdled into desperation. He saw the truth. The G-Virus was a mirror reflecting entropy. Wesker's Uroboros would later perfect the horror, but Birkin's failure was its first shadow. Evolution, he wrote, is not a ladder. It is a pit, and every step downward leaves echoes. What did Umbrella bury when they silenced him? Not a weapon. A warning. G-Virus was a scalpel. It was supposed to carve pathways controlled, calculated. Instead, it carved monsters. In Raccoon City's gutted streets, Septoct 1998, Birkin's formula dissolved flesh into something alien. Not evolution, devolution. The notebooks found beneath the abandoned lab in Arclay Mountains state it plainly. This was never about humanity ascending. It was a dead end, a miscalculation. Uroboros, years later, would stitch godhood to genome. G-Virus merely tore. Birkin's obsession with directed evolution masked a desperate imitation. He sought to fuse, but only corrupted. The T-Virus shattered cells. The G-Virus shattered limits *. Yet where Uroboros harmonizes, G-Virus consumes *. Infected bodies twisted into grotesque parodies of potential. A child's spine blooming like a fungal stalk. A man's skull splitting to reveal bioluminescent tendrils. These were not steps forward. They were questions asked too loud. Umbrella's ladder of pathogens climbs T-Virus, then G-Virus its broken rungan, finally Uroboros. Each iteration sheds the pretense of control. Birkin's final failure was not in the design, it was in the arrogance. He assumed the role of midwife to a future that wanted no part of him. The echoes in that pit are not warnings, they are howls. The howls in Raccoon's gutters were not cries of monsters, they were dirges for the damned. Birkin's obsession, festering in the mansion's shadow, birthed not evolution but a grotesque mimicry. His test subjects Laswell's broken bodies. The Bravo team's ashes were not pioneers, they were roadkill on the path to something colder. July 1998's rot was a dry run for a horror Wesker would perfect a decade later. The G-Virus did not seek symbiosis. It gnawed at the edges of Uroboros' design, a botched sketch of a god. Raccoon's Autumn Reek told the same tale, flesh twisted not toward transcendence but toward. The mutants stumbling through streets were not the future. They were ululation sechos of a system rejecting its architect. Birkin, hollowed by his own creation, became the first to taste the virus lie. His collapse in 1998 was no failure. It was a mercy. Uroboros waited in the wings, polished in 2009's shadow. Wesker's vision required no intermediaries, no Birkins. No cities choked by failed prototypes. The G-Virus was a mangled draft, a primer for the elegance of annihilation. Its victims paid the price of a question left unanswered. What does it mean to evolve when the womb is a grave? The earth still remembers their weight. Birkin's notes, Laswell's ruins, Raccoon's bonesaw whisper of a symbiosis that was never meant to survive. The G-virus was not a prototype, it was a requiem, and Uroboros, a requiem with teeth, 235 words. Birkin's abandoned notes in Resident Evil 5 S rusted archives reveal a truth. The G-virus erratic mutations mirrored Uroboros' DNA. A dead end, Wesker's design required not evolution, but annihilation, a symbiosis that devours. Flickering lab lights still trace the night Birkin's unstable prototypes erupted, spilling blood and data. Umbrella feared the G-virus chaos, yet its collapse birthed something colder. A virus that does not evolve it awaits . The G-virus was not a requiem, Uroboros, the final requiem. The G-virus was not a failure, it was a rehearsal. In Raccoon City's rusted labs, William Birkin carved symbiosis from rot. His specimens did not evolve as he erupted. Flesh cracked, bones twisted, and something older slithered through the cracks. Umbrella's vaults overflowed with such horrors. Las Plagas, the nemesis. Monstrosities meant to break humanity's spine, yet Birkin's notes, scrawled in fever-stained script, reveal a different truth. He sought not chaos but balance, a virus that could merge man and beast, mind and microbe, a bridge, a bond. But Umbrella had no use for bridges, only weapons. The G-virus collapse was not an accident, it was a purge. When Birkin's test subjects grew too strong, too aware, Umbrella's execs sealed the facility. They burned data, they buried bodies. Yet the virus lingered, it whispered in the veins of those who survived. Leon, Claire, Ada, the G-virus true lesson. Evolution is not a gift, it is a transaction. Wesker's Uroboros would refine this truth, but Birkin's work laid the rot. His abandoned cells, now frozen in Re5's underground labyrinth, show a company that feared its own creation. They built gods only to kneel, only to destroy. What does this mean? The T-virus shattered life, the G-virus reassembled it. Uroboros will not repeat the cycle, it will complete it. Birkin's experiments were not steps toward Uroboros. They were cracks in the foundation, a warning. Umbrella's final act was not ambition, it was desperation. They did not seek to evolve humanity, they sought to erase it, and in that erasure they found their masterpiece. The Laswell ruins hum with silence. Birkin's notes lie cracked, DNA sequences mirroring Uroboros' spiral. Umbrella's maps show labs buried in Peru, Africa, Borneo before 1998. A global experiment, the G-virus was not evolution. It was a scaffold, a primitive framework for Wesker's later designs. Birkin carved a door, but the key did not fit. His subject's flesh rotted, not transcended. The prototype's failure was systemic. Uroboros demanded symbiosis, G-virus invited collapse. What remains here is not a weapon, but a scar. The earth breathes through shattered concrete, exhaling the stench of what was buried. Umbrella erased Laswell, yet the truth seeps upward. A failed god, its ambition fossilized in the soil. What does a serpent swallow when its own tail turns to dust? The answer waits in the rot, 124 words. What if the G-virus was not evolution but a miscalculation? William Birkin's obsession did not chase progress, it excavated a blueprint. A prototype symbiosis, crude and ravenous, buried beneath Umbrella's hunger for dominion. The G-virus gnawed at its own tail, a serpent strangling in its shed skin. Unlike T-virus chaos, this strain sought fusion host and pathogen as one, yet Birkin's vessel could not contain the weight. His flesh became a graveyard of failed metamorphosis. Umbrella's laboratories bred nightmares, but the G-virus was their most grotesque child. A mirror to Wesker's later thesis, yet twisted by human frailty. Where Uroboros ascended, G-virus collapsed at a bridge to nowhere. The pathogen evolution arcs from T-virus ruin through G-virus hubris to Uroboros transcendence. Each a step, each a corpse. Wesker's vision was never humanity's salvation, it was its reckoning. The G-virus whispers that reckoning's price is paid in ash. Ambition fossilized in the soil. What does a serpent swallow when its own tail turns to dust? The answer waits in the rot. The answer waits in the rot. Marcus 1968 Arclay notes birthed T-virus. T begat G. G mimicked Uroboros' hunger. Birkin's covert test sought symbiosis, not evolution. A dead end. What did Wesker nourish with